That's always been at the core of what we were doing. We know that he's a Black artist. We know that he's a Black artist in country music. We know that he is not the same as any other artist, and approaching every single creative decision with that in mind is like, we're not going to win in the same ways that a Luke Combs is going to win.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Evan Kaufman. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about branding and creative direction for an artist who doesn't necessarily fit the mold of a certain genre. We're going to be talking with my good friend Taha, who is a radio show host for Apple Music. She's also creative director for an artist named Breland, who I work with as well. Breland is a perfect example of someone who is redefining what it means to be a country music artist. So, here we go.
Well, so the way that we met was I host a radio show on Apple Music, and then he, at the time when we launched, was one of the artists that they launched with. So he had his own show on Apple Music as well. I was just trying to collaborate more. And I remember sliding into the DMs and I was like, you are brilliantly creative. I would love to like chat and like, talk about, because I feel like, and you will, I think, agree to this, as a creative, there's something about the collaborative spirit, and being able to work with other creatives and just like vibe with them, like just kind of sponge it up and input a lot of other energy. I think it's really important. And so, he wasn't even sure what a creative director did, at the time. And he didn't know I was a creative
Welcome to the club, Breland. Nobody
Yeah,
really
he didn't
knows,
even know I
right?
was a creative director. Like, he just knew me as the radio girl.
Yeah.
And, then he was like, we're looking for a creative director. And I was like, yeah, let me tell you what that is, kind of thing. And, I think why we vibed essentially from the jump is that I'm an Egyptian woman. I'm a woman of color in the country music space. So I inherently understand a lot of, the things that he's going through, or like you said, like the challenges of coming into a genre where you're not the same as everyone else,
Right.
And I think that diversity is important in, race and sex and sexual orientation and all of those things, but it's also really important in perspective and background. So like, a Black person is not going to have the same perspective as me. I'm not going to have the same perspective as, a white girl. Like, it's just that there's so many different backgrounds and histories and all of that. And I think we kind of came together in that understanding because he hadn't spent time in country music and I've spent, 11, 12 years in it. And so I've kind of played with the confines of country and the genre and pushing those boundaries. And so we aligned on that responsibility that we have as people of color to be like, no, we're going to do things differently. And there's always, we're still struggling with Breland and making sure that his brand is aligned with who he is, but then also kind of, pushes the boundaries, but is still palatable enough for the country music audience without pushing them away, but also allowing them to realize that it's okay to be pushed away. It's okay to be pushed outside your boundaries. It's okay to like see something different and hear something different. And so that's always been at the core of what we were doing, is making sure that, we know that he's a Black artist. We know that he's a Black artist in country music. We know that he is not the same as any other artist, and approaching every single creative decision with that in mind is like, we're not going to win in the same ways that a Luke Combs is going to win. We knew we were going to get hit with, doors slamming in our face. We just had to be creative in the solution finding. And I think that's the key to being a really good creative, is not just coming up with ideas and doing artwork. It's like, how can we be creative in the solutions? And that process of like, okay, these are our boundaries. How do we play within them, but then also expand outside of them?
Man, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, what's kind of happening right now within the world of country music? Because it's been so traditional, I think, for so long, with radio and with what kind of breaks an artist and what creative looks like on that end. But I feel like there's a big shift right now, right? Would you agree with that? I feel like there's a lot more artists like Breland who are kind of breaking it up a little bit.
There's a shift, but there's still so much work to do. And there's still a lot of gatekeepers, and there are still a lot of people that believe that country music should be traditional and, honor that history. And I think that, what we're doing is inching forward, and I would like to see strides. I think that it's important for not only the artists like Breland to do what they're doing, but it's important to have, the artists on the other end, the white artists, the traditional artists, be allies to, the artists that are doing things differently. And I think it's really interesting that country music tends to, fight for tradition. And it's like, we're not trying to ruin the history of
You're not trying to change that.
music or change,
Yeah.
like mess up the tradition. We want to honor the tradition by also being progressive. And at the end of the day, country music is Black. That's the history of country music. And I think some people decide to forget that. And we have to remind them, like the core of country music started in Black music. So I think that's an interesting thing. I think that, there's a lot of growth that has happened, and I'm proud of the genre for doing that. But then there's a lot of people that are still, sorry, my washer, I'm doing.
No, you're fine.
It's been a long, I really needed to do laundry. But there's a lot of people who are fighting that. And I can't wait until we get to a point where people aren't fighting progression and change anymore, because it's not a negative. I feel like the way that people listen to music, country music's one of the largest streamed genres. And, Morgan Wallen is the #1 all genre artist, like he's sold more than Drake and Adele and Taylor. Like we are an expanded genre, but there are people that are trying to hold it close, and that does nothing for us. It doesn't expand us as a genre. It doesn't grow country music. It doesn't take us to places that we haven't been before, so there's a lot of work to be done, but yes, there is a lot of, we can be grateful for the progress.
In terms of you taking on a project as creative director, is it just as easy as saying, I love the music, I love what this artist stands for? How does that all break down for you?
Changed and evolved in the history of Good Cop, Bad Cop. I mean, there's a few things, like we'll run into things and we're like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. We need to make sure that we're doing this. And, I think from the inception of this, I've always felt like it was important to have a conversation with said artist. So I guess before that, like when we are, approached by an artist or a team or somebody's like, hey, you should talk to this person. We listen to the music. I don't like the word boutique, but we're very curated in our roster. So we don't have 40, 50 artists or, clients. We are very curated. So everything that we bring in, whether it's an artist or an athlete or a brand or whatever, we make sure that it's aligned in vibe. And like, is it something that is different? Is it something that, we're going to enjoy working on? Like one of the things that we've decided is like, we're not going to work with assholes, like we're not going to work with people who don't get it.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And that's from working with assholes and working with people who don't get it. Like, it's like you go through these things, and as a business owner, as a, somebody that's running a company, you're like, and me and my partner, Robbie, like, we'll just talk about this all the time. We're like, well, that, wasn't awesome. Or, we loved how this went. And this, you kind of go through different situations and you're like, okay, you learn from them. And so it's evolved. But one of the things always, the next step after deciding like, okay, we're interested, we have to have a conversation one-on-one with that artist or that client, like a dinner, a drinks, a something where it's like, do we vibe? Would I want to be stuck in an airport for hours with this person? Like, can we have conversations with them? Are they passionate? Are they working hard? Because we've worked with artists who we work harder than. And it's like, if we believe more in you than you believe in you, this is never going to work.
That's a problem for sure.
And so there's not like criteria, but it's definitely things that we look for. And in general, we're curating a really unique roster and making sure that we worked with like a Porsche racing driver at one point, it's like, those are the things that are like, if someone were to look at our roster would be like, that's really interesting and really different. And like, Breland's the only country artist we have right now. And he's not even like fully country, you know what I mean? It's we're making sure, and that one is very much an alignment and belief and, a lot of other things, but it's like making sure that we are aligned and that there's autonomy and that the artist or the client understands that like, and trusts us and we trust them. And it's so fluid being a creative director because you are basically on the front lines with this artist. Like you are in the trenches, like, you know, you're making sure that the stylist and the director and whomever else is getting involved, knows the vision and knows the brand. Like we are the protector of the brand. I do a lot of the graphic design myself. Like, so any of the artwork for Breland is usually me, but then I work on, you know, merch with other people. And I'll, you know, if I'm ever bringing someone in, it's like, I'm handling and directing that. So like a video shoot, for example, you know, it's finding the right director that makes sense and vetting them. And then, you know, working on the treatment with them. And then on site, basically, you know, going through every shot and making sure everything is on brand and he looks good and working with Molly, his stylist. And so I'm very much like, involved in every piece of that.
How much of that is done before even bringing those options to Breland?
So much.
Do you give him like a couple options and then say, hey, like if you like him, I'm going to go reach out. If you like her, I'll do a call. Like, how does it work for you?
Normally it's the opposite. I will do. So like when I first started my original creative company before Good Cop, Bad Cop, and even with Good Cop, Bad Cop, one of the biggest things that we believe in is, you know, taking care of the creatives and like fostering creatives. So a lot of the creatives we have on our, you know, like that we work with, we've known since they were in college and we gave them a chance and then we grew with them, you know? And I think that's really important to give these creatives opportunities that they may not get elsewhere, you know, and knowing that like they're going to grow and they're going to be badass directors and whatever. And it's like, we get to grow together with them. And so there's a lot of people that I already know, and then I'll bring and be like, we've worked with them a million times. Here's this person, whatever. Most of the time I already have an idea of who is right because I've either worked with them or I've spoken to them, understand like the vibe and know that they're aligned in what we're doing. And then it's like, then I'll bring them forward. We'll work on a treatment, whatever. And, you know, have them talk to Breland and, you know, or the artist and make sure that they vibe and all of that. But normally all of that work is done ahead of time, you know, even on the edit side, on the post, I go through multiple edits before I take version 1 to the client. Even on the post side, you know, it's like I go through a million edits before I even take version 1 to the client because it's like, I'm not going to take the first, you know, this.
Oh yeah. The first edit's the worst thing in the world. Yeah. The first edit's typically the most depressing thing that I've ever seen. And it's like, why did I do this? Why did I sign up for it? Why did I trust myself with it? And then it starts hammering in and gets better and better. So
Don't get me started on the mental battles creatives go through.
Oh man.
that's a serious thing, right?
That is, I mean, yes.
That's a good jumping off point here. So mental health wise, what do you do to kind of take care of yourself?
Oh my goodness. I'm in the thick of it. I think like I go through phases and it's a journey. Like I struggle with anxiety and depression and, you know, pretty heavily. And so like, and the work that we do, not only as a creative, but as a business owner, like, holy shit, man. Like it is just, the highs are highs and the lows are lows. Like people will be like, how are you? And I'm like, ask me tomorrow.
Stay away from me. Stay away. Yeah. No, trust me.
You know, and I'm definitely like an introverted extrovert because obviously I'm a talent. So like I talk on the radio every day and, you know, so it's like I have to be on. And so for me, I re-energize by being alone, being in my house with my cat, you know? And the biggest piece for me is travel. Like I have to go out. I have to leave. I have to be somewhere else. And like, I'll do these like 48s where like, I'll go somewhere else, like Chicago, you know, wherever that I need a cabin, something, and just go for 48 hours, turn off my phone, you know, play, do a lot of play, like a puzzle, a game, you know, go outside, whatever. And I think the thing that I have to work on is the daily, you know, like I haven't figured out yet how to take care of my mental health daily. You know, it's tough because I get stuck I'm in front of my computer, I'm working on something for hours, I don't eat, you know, I am like whatever. And so I have to kind of pull myself away and go for a walk or go, do whatever.
So I can tell you this for myself, I've noticed such a difference in just setting up realistic boundaries. It's like at X time, I'm going to not respond to a text. At X time, I'm going to not check emails. So doing that, and then I found exercise too has just been really the two game changers for myself. Because I was and am like exactly like that. It's like I'm an introverted extrovert as well. I do things like this. I do phone calls with my clients. I engage all day, but I really, really need time where it's only me and where I can just be quiet and where I can do a hobby or I can do something that isn't related to the work that I do. I mean, I get asked all the time, like, Evan, when are you moving to Nashville? I'm like, dude, I work enough as is. Like, if I lived in Nashville, like you, I would just be like immersed in this thing, like this machine that just doesn't stop. So really, like, just taking time to go on a walk or go on a jog or get in a sauna or just things, and then being quiet alone by myself has made such a difference. And it's a day-to-day thing. Like, it's there are days, most days, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym. Most days the last thing I want to do is carve time out because I've got a project that I need to get done, and I know that I can't right now. So, I don't know. It's a balance. It's a
balance, but you're right. It's boundaries. Like, and I think we have to set boundaries for ourselves, like literally, like go eat. And then we have to set boundaries for our clients and the people that we work with, because like I'm in a phase now where I'm like, I'm not going to, I used to be like a 0.5 second responder. And now I'm like, nope. And if a client is like, I need this right now, I'm like, no, you don't. Do you? Is it like a real emergency or is it a fabricated emergency? Just learning to now speak on that in defense of myself, but mostly in defense of the creatives that I bring on, because those are my people and I have to protect them, and I have to make sure that I'm not pushing them. Like, I can't be only protecting myself and my boundaries and my mental health. Like, we all have to collectively take care of each other, So like, if I bring a videographer in on a project or a director in on a project, it's like, I got to make sure I'm telling them what the deliverables are, what the timeline is, what it's going to look like, and all of those things. And I think that's a big piece of mental health, because it helps me kind of remove a little bit of stress. Like, gosh, the amount of stress that I have just like trying to get something done, like, or respond immediately. And it's like, it's going to be there in an hour. It's going to be there tomorrow. And like, I'm learning to like relinquish that, like need to respond immediately, So
it's funny too. It's funny too, because I feel like so much of the time when I'm hiring out to find the right artist or director or videographer, whoever, I'm really trying to make sure that I'm taking care of them as well. And like, my allegiance, of course, is always to the artist and the client. But at the same time, it's like, because I've been in the trenches, I get how complicated it is. I get that maybe people aren't giving them all of the right info. So I really try to advocate for anybody who I hire. And at the same time, trying to take care of their own mental health sometimes I feel like is on me a bit. And it's like, those are things that I take very seriously. I want to make sure that they're compensated. I want to make sure that if there are revisions, that they are taken care of and that everybody ends up walking away happy. And a lot of the time that is a lot on your shoulders, and that is a lot to kind of
that is our job. Like, beyond just being, the creative director for the artist, we are the creative director that's handling these creatives. And I think that is so important and so great that you are doing that, because it's like, they don't have another advocate. Like, we are
they don't.
We speak both languages. Like, I think that's really important, is like, we speak the language of the label and the management and whatever, but we also speak the creative language for these creatives. And they normally, there's always a disconnect from both sides. So I think it's important that we're in a unique position to speak both languages and help, navigate those waters.
100%, 100%.
All right, I need to wrap this thing up, but man, thank you so much. It was so awesome talking with you. Fantastic advice all around. How can people find you? How can they engage with you?
Yeah, I'm at Nada Means Nothing on everything. And then you can listen to my Apple Music radio show every day at 6 p.m. Central.
Real quick, I listened to your show the other day and I heard you say the most Nashville thing ever, that your insurance agent wrote a Bailey Zimmerman hit song. And I was like, like nothing is more Nashville than that. That is the best thing that I've ever heard. So crazy, man. So crazy. I love it.
What?
I love
Thank
it.
you for having me. And this is really, like, it's so dope that you're doing this. It's really important.
Thank you. Thank you. I think so as well. So
Thank you for being a part. And I will talk to you soon, Nada.